Welcome to Lumos Maxima, the Rolling Library podcast. My name is Demi Schwartz, a Hufflepuff.
My name is Jessica Minetti, a Ravenclaw. It's time to turn on the light because Hogwarts is about to welcome you home.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 5 of Lumos Maxima. We're super excited to be back again.
Yes, we are, and we've gotten a really great response on social as per usual. So if you guys don't know, we have a Facebook page called Lumos Maxima, the Rolling Library Podcast, and we have a Twitter and Instagram at Lumos MaximaCast. We post fun content all week, so stay tuned for that.
We also have a YouTube channel, which is just Lumos Maxima, the Rolling Library Podcast, where we post bonus content, bloopers, and fun songs that I write for the episodes. And now, Jess, do you want to tell everybody our topic?
Our topic is the Triwizard Tournament! Oh my gosh, I'm super excited for this one. I think it's going to be really fun. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty. And we have a special guest, our friend Maddie, who's been following us on social, and we decided to ask her if she wanted to come on, and she said yes. So, Maddie, say hi to the people.
Hello, Potter fans. It is a huge honor to be here. I'm so thankful. My house is Hufflepuff. My wand is 10 inches, willow, bendy, and unicorn hair. My Patronus is a panther. My favorite book is Deathly Hallows. My favorite character is Dobby. And my favorite class is Care of Magical Creatures.
So thank you for introducing yourself. We are super excited to have Maddie back in our Tales of Magic and Mischief segment to dive into the Triwizard Tournament. But right now, let's get into the latest issue of the Rolling Library magazine.
Let's take a glimpse into the articles in the latest issue of the Rolling Library magazine. The May issue of the Rolling Library magazine is out now. You can read it on therowlinglibrary.com. So we have the cover article, which is called Back to Basics. It's pretty much about how the reading experience was back then when the books were coming out versus how it is today in 2020. We have my article, which is called Professor Sprout's Heart Belongs to Hufflepuff House and Herbology. This is my Character of the Month article, and it was super awesome for me to be able to write about my very own head of house and talk about how she's such an awesome and loyal Hufflepuff and a fabulous herbology professor. We have Jess's fabulous article, which is called Thestrals, Mysterious and Meaningful Magical Creatures. This is all about Thestrals in general, and she also makes awesome ties to the characters who can see them. So totally go read Jess's article, everybody. We also have an article called The Lost Years, and this is super interesting because it takes a look at the 19-year period between the Battle of Hogwarts and the start of Cursed Child. There's an article in here about the new Harry Potter at Home edition where we can watch our favorite Harry Potter stars and others read Sorcerer's Stone. I absolutely love this because after reading the first book so many times, it's very special to be able to hear, people like Daniel Radcliffe and Ivana Lynch read chapters. It's just very, very special. As always, there's a Wizarding World crossword puzzle and quote by Joe, which Jess is going to read for us.
I drew a lot of pictures. I drew them for no one but me. I just wanted to know what the characters looked like. So anyway, that was Argus Filch. No prizes. Snape, obviously. That is Harry arriving in Privet Drive with Professor McGonagall and Hagrid and Dumbledore. Now let's get into our Triwizard quote. It's time for Quick Quotes Corner. Hey guys, welcome to Quick Quotes Corner. This quote was spoken by Barty Crouch Sr. in Chapter 17 of The Goblet of Fire called The Four Champions. He says, "We must follow the rules, and the rules state clearly that those people whose names come out of the Goblet of Fire are bound to compete in the tournament." This quote happens right after Harry's name is spit out of the Goblet of Fire. He heads up to the teacher's table and looks at Dumbledore, who urges him to go on to the Champions Room outside the Great Hall. Everybody is super confused about why Harry is there. The judges come by, and this is when Barty Crouch Sr. tells Harry that he's obligated to compete in the tournament. So now we have four champions, Cedric, Fleur, Harry, and Crumb. So not only are two champions from Hogwarts competing, but Harry is the youngest of them all, and it shouldn't be possible for him to compete since he didn't put his name in the goblet. Obviously, we know that Mad-Eye Moody aka Barty Crouch Jr., put his name in to aid in Voldemort's rising and to condemn Harry to die. But Harry doesn't know this, so the fact remains that he was chosen and forced against his knowledge and will into something dangerous. This is pretty frightening and intimidating, especially because Harry doesn't have all of the training that the other champions do. Plus, he has no idea what kinds of tasks he must undertake, and he has to work to survive. So I would be super scared if this were happening to me. Yes, the competition is exciting, but I think it's only exciting from the standpoint of someone who's watching the competition. I think, like, the champions, as much as they want the 1,000 galleons, are, like, super scared. So I understand now why the age restriction was put on the people competing, because this is not something for a 14-year-old boy.
This quote alone is very significant too, because it's basically saying that once your name comes out of the Goblet of Fire, you have no choice. You have to compete. And Harry is basically being forced into the situation. And at the same time, like, it's not only him being forced into this dangerous situation, but it's also costing him his friendship with Ron at the beginning, because Ron believed that Harry put his name in the Goblet of Fire, and ultimately they get into a big fight and they don't talk to each other, and Harry's like, no, I didn't do it, like, I swear. But, you know, Ron doesn't believe in him until after the whole task with the dragons. So it's kind of scary for him, like you were saying, and ultimately at the end, like, he almost dies when he goes back to where Voldemort is reborn. So being locked into the tournament and forced into it by Barty Crouch Jr. is just terrifying.
The news of who will be competing in the Triwizard tournament was just spit out of the Goblet of Fire. But now, let's go to our owl Polly for wizarding news in the Muggle world.
Hey, it's Polly, our owl. She's bringing us the wizarding news in the Muggle world.
Thank you so much, Polly, for bringing this wizarding news. Let's see what we got. First, this is super fabulous. So our favorite Wizarding World stars and other celebrities are reading all 17 chapters of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone as part of Harry Potter at Home.
First, we start off with Daniel Radcliffe, who reads Chapter 1, The Boy Who Lived. Noma Dumezwini reads Chapter 2, The Vanishing Glass. Eddie Redmayne reads Chapter 3, The Letters from No One. Stephen Fry reads Chapter 4, The Keeper of the Keys. Chapter 5, which is called Diagon Alley, is read by Simon Cowell, Bonnie Wright, and Ivana Lynch. And Chapter 6, The Journey from Platform 9 3/4, is read by Jamie Parker and some of the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child cast.
I hope Matthew Lewis, my Neville, reads one of these chapters, because if he doesn't, I'm going to be so sad. But you guys can listen to these fantastic readings of the first book on the Wizarding World's podcast on Spotify. It's called Harry Potter at Home Readings, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's / Sorcerer's Stone. Next, we all know that the Battle of Hogwarts took place on May 2nd, 1998, and is one of the greatest events in Wizarding history because of the downfall of Lord Voldemort. J.K. Rowling has taken to Twitter to apologize for characters' deaths in the past on the anniversary of the battle, and she's apologized for characters including Snape, Lupin, and Fred. And she also apologized for Dobby, which I think is super awesome, because even though Dobby didn't die during the battle, he did die in the 7th book, and he was also one of the most brave characters in the series. So I love how he was included in this tribute. This year, on the 22nd anniversary of the battle, Rowling stepped away from her tradition and instead made a very generous donation to 2 UK charities, Crisis and Refuge, to aid them during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is what she said on Twitter. Today is the 22nd anniversary of the Battle of Hogwarts, but I'm going to be honest and say that it feels inappropriate to talk about fictional deaths today. Too many people are losing loved ones in the real world. So on this anniversary of this great wizarding victory, I'm thinking of the people who are out there doing their jobs to protect us and our way of life. I have 3 key workers in my immediate family, and like all such relatives, I'm torn between pride and anxiety. As ever in a crisis of this sort, the poorest and most vulnerable are hit hardest. So in honor of the Battle of Hogwarts, I'll be making a donation of 1 million British pounds, half of which will go to crisis.org.uk, who are helping the homeless during the pandemic, and half of which will go to refuge.org.uk. because we know that domestic abuse has sadly increased hugely during the lockdown. So I think what Roland did was incredible. It's important to continue to give back to the community during this time, and for her to make such a generous donation on the anniversary of the Battle of Hogwarts will definitely make the 22nd anniversary of the battle one that will never be forgotten. Now let's go over to Jess with Triwizard Tournament news.
Hey guys, so first we're going to define the Triwizard Tournament. So the Triwizard Tournament is a competition between 3 European schools, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Durmstrang Institute, and Beauxbatons Academy of Magic. So this tournament started about 700 years ago, and the 3 schools competed with 3 champions, 1 from each school. The schools took turns hosting the tournament every 5 years. The tournament consists of a series of tasks designed to test the 3 champions in many different ways, including their magical prowess, their daring, their powers of deduction, and their ability to cope with danger. The champions are selected using a special artifact, the Goblet of Fire. When tapped 3 times with a wand, an ancient wooden chest encrusted with jewels opens to reveal the goblet, which is placed on top of the chest. The goblet is a large, roughly hewn cup filled to the brim with dancing blue flames. Champions write their names on a slip of parchment and put it in the goblet. Then the ones that are spit out of the goblet are champions of the tournament. So not only is the tournament dangerous, but cheating is also a traditional part of the tournament. The winner of the tournament receives the Triwizard Cup, the glory of their school, and 1,000 galleons. So in 1972, the champions were supposed to catch a cockatrice, which went on a rampage. All 3 school heads were injured, and the death toll mounted, so the tournament was discontinued. The tournament was reinstated in 1994 through 1995, when Hogwarts hosted the tournament in Harry Potter's 4th year. So Durmstrang Institute is a castle in Northern Europe where the days are very short in winter. Durmstrang is a spoonerism, so this meaning is really cool. So it's a spoonerism of Sturm und Drang, which is a borrowed German expression which means turmoil and ferment. And deriving from the name of a highly emotionally driven German artistic movement of the 1700s, a precursor of Romanticism, Sturm und Drang translates as tempest and urge to charge and rush, but it was anglicized as storm and stress. So the founder of the school is Nerida Volkanova of Bulgaria. She was very powerful, but she mysteriously died. So after she died, Harfang Munter headed the school, and he focused his lessons on duels and combat/military magic and established the school's reputation for the dark arts. Now, in Goblet of Fire, the headmaster or head of the school is ex-Death Eater Igor Karkaroff. It was also rumored that while he was a headmaster, Durmstrang didn't admit Muggle-born students. The really cool thing about Durmstrang is that it is a castle of 4 floors and it has a larger student population than Hogwarts. The grounds include lakes and mountains, and the fires are said to only be lit for magical purposes, according to Crumb. The Institute is either charmed to look like ruins or carrying a Muggle rebelling charm. It is also unplottable, so other wizards can't find it. Visitors to Durmstrang are required to submit to memory-modifying charms, so they can't reveal its location. So as far as the student populations go, the students wear furs and red robes, and they're seen traveling to the Triwizard Tournament in Harry's 4th year in an enchanted ship, which helps to mask their starting location. Now, Gellert Grindelwald was a pupil at Durmstrang, and he carved the symbol of the Deathly Hallows into one of the walls. Also, Lucius Malfoy wanted to send Draco here, and obviously he didn't go because Narcissa said it was too far away. So that's all we have on Durmstrang. Obviously, I've butchered this name before, but we're going to talk about Beauxbatons Academy of Magic. Beauxbatons is devised from the French beau batons, which literally translates to beautiful sticks in French. Baguette is the word used for wand, but baton might be a reference to it. Also, it would more likely be translated as staff, which is like the staff Mad-Eye Moody carries. Beauxbatons' headmistress is the giantess Olympe Maxime. The school is located in a beautiful chateau in the Pyrenees Mountains, which form the border between France and Spain. The chateau is called the Palace of Beauxbatons. That's fancy. It is surrounded by gardens with a large fountain named after Nicholas and Perenelle Flamel. I probably said her name wrong, but these two met while attending the school. And unlike Hogwarts, it doesn't contain suits of armor. The palace actually contains a dining chamber, which is elaborately decorated at Christmas, but in a different style than that used at Hogwarts. So going back to the student population, it's larger than Hogwarts. So it almost seems like Hogwarts dwarfs these two schools. Students come from many countries in Western Europe, including Spain, Portugal, Luxembourg, Belgium, and the Netherlands. The students wear silk robes, and the students who came to Hogwarts in the Goblet of Fire wore pale blue. Instead of sitting their ordinary wizarding levels on their equivalent at the end of 5 years like they do at Hogwarts, Academy students actually sit their exams after 6 years. The powder blue flying carriage that the students travel into Hogwarts was pulled by 12 huge winged golden palomino horses who drink only single malt whiskey. And Beauxbatons' coat of arms are 2 crossed golden wands on a powder blue field with 3 shooting stars coming from the tip of each wand. That's just so cool. Like, I would love to go there. What do you think? Which school would you like to go to, Demi? Would you like to go to all 3, or like which one would you pick to actually like attend?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, maybe like go to school at Hogwarts just because we spend so much time at the school and the 7 books that it kind of feels like home to me, and I'd really love to go there. But I definitely want to visit the other 2. Durmstrang would be cool to visit, but I would never want to go there because of its association with the dark arts. But I think Beauxbatons is like super fabulous and pretty and unique and stuff. So honestly, if Professor Dumbledore would let me, I would totally want to do like an exchange student thing and like go there for a semester or something.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I would be with you. Like, I would love to go to Hogwarts and then visit Beauxbatons and Durmstrang, but under no circumstances would I ever want to be a student there. I'd just be like scared and looking around every corner like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Who's there? Like, but I would like to see the place where Grindelwald carved the Deathly Hallows. That would be cool. Alright, so that's all I have for Triwizard and school news. So now we are going into Tales of Magic and Mischief, where we will dive deeper into the Triwizard Tournament.
Now it's time to dive into the book topic of the week for Tales of Magic and Mischief.
Hey guys, it's time for Tales of Magic and Mischief with Maddie and Demi, and today we're talking about the Triwizard Tournament, which is one of my favorite topics. If I hadn't said that before, I'm gonna say it 5,000 times, just because this is just highly entertaining. And the first highly entertaining part about the Triwizard Tournament is when Dumbledore explains it to everybody at the start of the term, and Fred and George are like, this age limit sucks, and we're not going to follow it. Dumbledore specifically says, the heads of the participating schools, along with the Ministry of Magic, have agreed to impose an age restriction on contenders this year. Only students who are of age, that is to say 17 years or older, will be allowed to put forward their names for consideration. Well, obviously Fred and George don't follow this rule. So when the Goblet of Fire is brought out, they put their names in there, and there's a little circular line that they have to cross. And they cross it, and they're like, yay, we got a cross! And then all of a sudden, it just, like, backfires on them. They fall over, and they sprout beards. So that's the first highly entertaining part about all of this. And also, the competition is pretty fierce. We have, obviously, Victor Crumb from Durmstrang competing. He's a seeker, which everybody is super excited about. And to the Gryffindor's dismay, he sits at the Slytherin table. So Malfoy has something else he gets to gloat about at this part of the book. And then another champion, obviously, is Fleur Delacour. And obviously, everybody's excited because Cedric is competing. This is the first time that we see a prominent Hufflepuff in the books, which obviously is great for Demi and Maddie.
Shout out to Hufflepuff!
Yeah, the Badgers. And then Harry gets picked. And he's like, what in the heck? I didn't put my name in the Goblet of Fire. You know, like, why is this happening? And obviously we know that Mad-Eye Moody, Barty Crouch Jr., put a charm on the goblet, and that's how his name got put in. But since his name was put in, the rules say he has to compete, so he's obligated to compete. Hagrid, who has always helped the trio with anything and everything they need, decides to tip Harry off about the first task. So he tells Harry to meet him at his hut at midnight, and Harry's like, why? Like, I have plans to talk to Sirius. But he agrees, and he goes to Hagrid's hut in the invisibility cloak, and then continues to follow Hagrid as he talks with Madame Maxime, and they stroll into the Forbidden Forest. Or actually near the Forbidden Forest. There is a dragon enclosure, and Harry's like, huh? This is crazy. And there are all of these people there. Charlie Weasley is there. And here is a description of the dragons. There was a silvery blue one with long pointed horns, snapping and snarling at the wizards on the ground. A smooth-scaled green one, which was writhing and stamping with all its might. A red one with an odd fringe of fine gold spikes around its face, which was shooting mushroom-shaped fire clouds into the air. And a gigantic black one, more lizard-like than the others, which was nearest to them. There were, like, at least 30 wizards there, and there were 7 or 8 of them to a dragon. So they were messing with the chains on the dragons and trying to corral them. And when that didn't work, they're like, okay, we're gonna stun them. And so they all take out their wands at the same time and stun the dragons so that they can properly chain them and make sure that they don't get away. So Harry is there, and he's like, oh my gosh, like, this is the first task. What's really kind of funny and crazy about this part is that all of the headmasters are there, all of the people from the other schools except Dumbledore. So Hagrid's tipping Harry off. Madame Maxime is there, so she's going to tip Fleur off about the dragons. And they see Karkaroff there, so he's going to tip them off. So let's talk about the dragons. We've talked about the description, but let's talk about what kinds they are. So the black dragon obviously was the Hungarian horntail. The small one was a common Welsh green. The blue-gray one was the Swedish short snout. And the red one was a Chinese fireball. Don't you think these names are, like, really cool, guys?
They are really cool names.
Like, I love this part. And I also think it's funny that it also is a clue here to what they're going to face, because Charlie says, they wanted nesting mothers. I don't know why, but I tell you this. I don't envy the one who gets the horntail. Vicious thing. Its back ends as vicious as its front. So, of course, you know, we know later that Harry gets this dragon. But, I mean, he has crappy luck. Not only does he, like, get it, but he also is the youngest in the tournament. So he's obviously scared. And he's going to be more scared later on when he gets this dragon.
I mean, honestly, though, like, looking at his luck, like, he has terrible luck in this entire series. That's just Harry Potter. He has crappy luck.
So the next day, Harry realizes that he needs to tell Cedric what's going on, because everybody else, all of the other champions, are going to know what they're facing, and Cedric is not. So Harry does a charm to break Cedric's bag open on their way to classes, and while Harry is helping him clean up the mess, he tells him what's going on, and Cedric's like, you know, why should I trust you? Like, you know, you're probably just gonna scare me. And Harry's like, well, no, like, it's only fair that you know. All the other champions know. And all of a sudden, Moody comes out of the nearest classroom and takes Harry into his office, and he says, that was a very decent thing you just did, Potter. And Moody assures Harry he's not in trouble for knowing about the dragons, and he tells him that cheating is a huge part of the tournament. Because obviously Karkaroff and Madame Maxime want to beat Dumbledore. You know, this is the host school. Dumbledore's looking all cool in his robes. He's like the best wizard ever, and these people are just in it to win it. They don't care what they do. So Moody decides to give Harry advice, obviously because he's an imposter and because he's grooming him to obviously help Lord Voldemort rise. So this is really like, Harry's like, oh my gosh, like I finally found another teacher that I like. He's giving me advice. Well, he's a bad guy. But at this point in the book, Moody says, play to your strengths. And then when Harry says he hasn't got any, Moody says his famous line, excuse me, growled Moody, you've got strengths if I say you've got them. Harry is told to think about what he's best at, and he says Quidditch. And Moody gives him the clue that he needs to summon what he needs to do this task. So Harry and Hermione talk later on, and Hermione's like, oh, that's the Accio charm. So they practice in a classroom in between classes, and then they practice almost all night until Harry can summon his firebolt. Because his plan, ultimately, is to summon the firebolt in the task, fly around the dragon, and catch the egg as if it's like the golden snitch.
The egg is golden too. So I just love that connection, that the egg is like a golden snitch.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that. It's like a Quidditch match with like a really mean other seeker, like on another team.
And it's really funny because I forget which book it is, but in one of the books, Harry does have a nightmare before a Quidditch match that the Slytherin team showed up on dragons. So it's really funny that this is kind of like a real life version of that nightmare.
I literally forgot about that. That's fantastic. And at this point, Harry doesn't really know what he's getting from the dragon. He just knows he has to face it. Finally, the day of the task arrives. They all are in a tent with Ludo Bagman, our favorite, and he's telling them that they have to catch the egg, and he gives them a purple sack that they have to pull out a model of the dragon with the number that they are going to go out on the field. So if they get number 1, they go first. If they get number 4, they go last. So Fleur pulls out the model of the Welsh Green, and she's number 2. Victor selects the Chinese Fireball, which I think is the coolest of them all because it's red and it shoots fire. And he has the number 3 around its neck. Cedric is number 1 with the Swedish short snout. Cedric, Swedish short snout. Say that 5 times fast. That's hysterical.
Cedric,
like,
Swedish
try
short
saying that.
Cedric, Swedish short snout. Cedric, Swedish short snout. Oh, man. It's like divination all over again.
Oh my gosh. That blooper was like hysterical. I was listening to it yesterday and like laughing / crying. And then here's the alliteration here. Hungarian Horntail Harry.
Oh, no
Hungarian
way.
Horntail Harry. This is happening everywhere. It's like super baffling. And then obviously Harry's last, which, okay, I don't know about you, but when I'm like told to give a presentation in class, right? I hate to be first and I hate to be last. I hate to be first because, people are just gonna judge you real harshly because you're first. But if you're last, everybody's not gonna listen to you talk in class because they're tired of listening to other people talk. So it's just like, it's terrible. Also, the anticipation is terrible. And again, this is where Harry has horrible luck. So I think this is also why Ludo Bagman is there, because they're basically wanting him to commentate this like a Quidditch match, and since he's a Quidditch player and they all love him, that's probably why he's there. Like, he is not smart in the slightest, and it's just hysterical that they're like, oh, he's another impartial judge. Okay, just because he can like ref a Quidditch game, he's a judge? That doesn't make any sense. He says, Mr. Diggory, you're first. Just go out into the enclosure when you hear a whistle. Dun, dun, dun. And right before this all starts, this is hysterical. So not only is Moody giving him advice, Bagman takes Harry out of the tent and starts asking him if he can give him pointers since Harry's the underdog. And Harry's like, that's cheating. Literally, Moody just told me we're all cheating here, and I don't like it. So he refuses Bagman, and Bagman leaves to go commentate. So Harry goes back into the tent, and he has to sit there while all of them go out. Harry can't hear anything except the commentating, like, ooh, look, or ooh, ouch, or like, all the commentating sounds that you hear in a Quidditch match. But he has no idea what's going on. And the judges who are sitting nearby have to evaluate all of them. So Harry's not going to know their numbers because he's sitting in the tent. he's also really not going to know what's going on, because sometimes when you commentate a match, it goes too fast that, like, they don't have time to say, you know, what's happening. So this is just scary as all heck. Like, if I was in this situation, I would probably have fled, and, like, it wouldn't have gone well for anyone. So now I'm going to give you guys a play-by-play of everything that happens, just like a commentator. You ready? This is going to be, like, hysterical. So Harry goes out there. He summons his firebolt. He mounts the broom. The golden egg is in between the dragon's front legs. Harry dives and pulls up just in time, swerving away from the fire that the dragon snorted out of its nose. He soars higher in a circle, and the horntail looks up, following his progress. Harry tries to make it dizzy. Then he plummets. He misses the flames, but the tail grazes his shoulder, ripping his robes. Harry's bleeding. He tries to persuade the dragon to move by soaring higher, so the dragon stretches its neck to look at him. She breathes fire and moves her tail, but Harry is out of her reach.
That was literally like a Shakespeare monologue 2.0. That was so good.
But it's not over. He goads her on, and she flies up in the air. Harry dives. He grabs the egg. He soars over the stands. He got it. He got it. He's quick. He was the quickest to get the egg, they said. So yeah, that was pretty darn smart. I mean, the imposter Moody may suck, but at that point, that's the only point in the book where I actually like him and respect him. But yeah, this was pretty darn cool. And so he's congratulated by Hagrid and McGonagall, and he goes to Madame Pomfrey's tent, obviously, because he's injured. So Hermione congratulates them, and Harry and Ron make up. And this is hysterical because Hermione literally cries after this whole thing happens, and she hugs them and tells them they're both really stupid. Like, crying at someone's stupidity is, I don't think I could do that. I just love her dramaticness. The other awesome part about this whole task is that Ron gives Harry another play-by-play of what happened with the others before he goes to get his scores. So Cedric transfigures a rock and turns it into a dog. And I was just like, what kind of strategy is that? Why would a dragon, like, be distracted by a dog? Especially if the dog is small, but I guess they say it's like a Labrador. Like, he ends up getting the egg, but he got burned. But that strategy is just so strange. Like, I would have never thought to do that. So then Ron tells Harry that Fleur tries to put a sleeping charm on the dragon, and it sort of works, but unfortunately when dragons snore, flame shoots out of their snouts, and she gets burned. So that kind of sucked, but at least it kind of worked. Like, at least she got the egg. That is definitely smarter than what Cedric did. But then Crumb hits the dragon with a spell in its eye, and then it goes trampling around in agony because it hurts, and he squishes the real eggs. Like, the dragon squishes its own children. Like, imagine that. You're just sitting there like, wow, this mom just murdered her kids because she stepped on them. Like, that's so sad. But obviously, they all get the egg, and while Harry's going out onto the field, he sees the judges sitting in seats draped in gold. So when he gets evaluated, his marks are out of 10. So Madame Maxine gives him a number 8, Crouch gives him a 9, Dumbledore also gives him a 9, Bagman gave him a 10, and Karkaroff, no one likes him, gives him a 4. That is the end of the first task, and obviously now that they have the egg, they have to find the clue that is inside the egg and solve it before the next task, which Maddie is going to talk to us about.
All right. So we've come to the end of the first task. Harry and Ron have made up, and Harry now has his golden egg. We are going to talk about the after party. I particularly love this part because he is asked by his friends to open the egg. So he prizes the egg open, only to find that it's hollow. There is a loud wailing screech that comes from the egg. Of course, he slams it shut, and one of his friends, Seamus, theorizes that he will have to fight a banshee next. Neville is terrified and says that he will have to fight the Cruciatus Curse. And my personal favorite is George. He says it sounds a bit like Percy singing in the shower. And maybe that is what he'll have to attack next.
Can I just say, though, like, with Neville, it literally breaks my heart that that's what he said, because his parents were tortured by the Cruciatus Curse, and for that sound to come out of the egg, like the first thing he thinks of is a curse. Oh my god, I love him and I feel so bad for Neville.
I know, like, you feel bad for him the whole series. Like, the whole Trevor thing throughout the whole series, you just feel bad for the poor kid because he just wants his toad back.
Harry keeps trying to figure out what the egg's clue could mean. He tries several methods to figure this out. He tries shaking the egg and reopening it to see if the noise changes. He tries shouting over the wailing and asking questions. He even tries throwing it across the room, and to no one's surprise, this does not work. He's very frustrated by this point. I would be too. So this leads us into the Yule Ball, which is a very interesting part of this story. Harry is told by McGonagall at the end of one of their transfiguration classes that he will have to invite a partner to the Yule Ball because all the champions have to open up the ball. His reply to this is, I don't dance. So, of course, she tells him, you don't have a choice. It's tradition. He is really nervous because he wants to invite his longtime crush, Cho Chang. He finally asks her after class one day. She's embarrassed, but she tells him, I'm sorry, Harry, but I've already been invited by someone else. As she goes to walk away, Harry yells after her, who are you going with? And she replies, Cedric Diggory. Harry's annoyed and a little upset that he got turned down by Cho, so he returns to the common room, only to find Ron being consoled by Ginny. Ron has asked Fleur to the ball, and Fleur just gives him a dirty look, and he's so embarrassed he runs away without saying anything. Poor dude.
She is, like, I didn't like her in the beginning, because she just has, like, this icy personality. I'm like, yeah, I don't like her.
Harry and Ron are still talking about getting turned down by the ones that they wanted to ask to the ball. Ron says, you're not going to believe who Neville asked. Hermione. He says that she's always so kind at helping him in potions. He laughs and says, she told him, though, that she is going with someone else. Don't blame her. Who would want to go with Neville?
Why does everybody hate him? I literally, like, I don't understand. And, like, Neville thinks that he shouldn't belong in Gryffindor. Him asking Hermione to the ball is straight up Gryffindor. I don't understand why everybody hates him and why he's just, like, made out to be this weird kid. If he would have asked me to the Yule Ball, I would have said yes.
I would have been like, heck yeah, you're adorable, you're awesome.
He's just a shy little kid,
Yes.
like, for, like, the first couple books, and, like, he's just so cute, but he does have a, like, in the first book, when, Harry's, like, telling him, he's like, yeah, like, Neville, you're worth 12 of Malfoy, and then Malfoy's there taunting them in the Quidditch match, and then Neville's like, I'm worth 12 of you, and Malfoy just, like, laughs at him. It's so sad.
Oh, I can't.
He's one of the best characters. I love him.
Thank you.
He's such a cutie
you.
pie. He's a cutie pie, like, the whole time.
Yes. So, Ginny replies to Ron and tells him, don't! So, she's sticking up for Neville. So, I love this because this shows a lot about her character. She doesn't want him being, picked on. Ginny tells Hermione about how the boys got turned down, and she's teasing Ron, saying, so I guess Eloise Midgen's looking pretty nice now, is she? Ron then stops, looks at Hermione, and is like, Neville is right. You are a girl. So, of course, being sarcastic, she goes, well spotted. I am a girl. He goes, so why don't you go with one of us to the ball? And she says, I can't. I've already been invited by someone else. Ron says, well, you just said that to get rid of Neville. She automatically fires up and goes, so just because it's taken you 3 years to notice I'm a girl, Ron, doesn't mean someone else hasn't. He laughs and says, okay, we know that you're a girl. Will you go now? She storms off. Ron turns to Ginny and goes, this is stupid. You go with Harry. She blushes and says, I can't. Neville invited me when Hermione turned him down. And I said yes, because I wouldn't have been able to go otherwise. Which is so adorable. I'm glad that Ginny decided to go with him.
This is why Ginny Weasley needs to get more credit, because she sticks up for Luna and she sticks up for Neville, and she just, like, doesn't take, like, crap from other people. Like, I love Ginny.
She's
No,
awesome.
and she's good at hexing people. She doesn't put up with anyone's BS. She'll just hex you in the hallways.
That's true.
So Harry spots Pavati Patil and Lavender Brown across the room, and he decides, okay. So he walks up to Pavati and says, Pavati, will you go to the ball with me? She, of course, is embarrassed and starts giggling and says, well then, I guess so. So then he turns to Lavender and says, will you go with Ron? Lavender says, I can't, I'm going with Seamus. Harry asks Pavati, don't you know anybody that would be willing to go with Ron? And she says, well, my sister Padma might. She's in Ravenclaw, you know. So it is now Christmas Day. We have everyone in the entrance hall. We see Harry. He is with Pavati. He's standing with the other champions and their partners. There's Fleur and Roger Davies, the captain of the Ravenclaw Quidditch team. There's Cedric and Cho. And then there is Crumb and a girl in pretty blue robes that Harry does not at first recognize. So as everyone starts to enter the Great Hall, and then Harry all of a sudden notices that it's Hermione who is with Crumb. Ron catches sight of them and is really upset with Hermione and storms past them. So the champions are now dancing. Harry's trying to avoid looking at Cho and Cedric. He spots Ron and Padma sitting over by a table, so he drags Pavati over there, and they go and sit down, and they're talking. Pavati and Padma are a little annoyed because Ron and Harry won't dance with them. So they leave. Hermione shows up, and she's flushed from dancing with Crumb, and she's happy and having a good time. Her and Ron get into it, and Ron says, you're fraternizing with the enemy. She gets upset and ends up storming off. Ron and Harry are both upset that they're not with who they want to be with at the ball, so they end up going for a walk outdoors. This is a very important part to the story because they overhear Hagrid confessing to Madame Maxime that he is half giant. They end up returning to the dance and talking in a corner away from everyone else, and everyone is saying goodnight for the evening. Cedric comes up to Harry and asks him about the egg, says, does yours wail when you open it? Harry tells him it does, and he tells him, well, take a bath. Of course, Harry's like, what the heck does this mean? Take a bath? Like, what are you on? He tells him, so take it into the prefect's bathroom. Just mull things over in the hot water. It'll help you think. Harry is like, okay, this guy's crazy. We skip forward a little bit. Harry finally decides to take Cedric's advice. He goes under his invisibility cloak and goes to the prefect's bathroom. While there, he's visited by Moaning Myrtle, who tells him to open the egg underwater. So, of course, he opens the egg underwater, and he hears the Mer song. Come seek us where our voices sound. We cannot sing above the ground. And while you listen, ponder this. We've taken what you sorely miss. An hour long you'll have to look, and to recover what we took. But past an hour, the prospect's black. It's gone. It won't come back. So through conversation with Moaning Myrtle, Harry realizes that this means that he will have to go into the Great Lake and retrieve something important from the Mer people. This leads into Harry, Ron, and Hermione doing extensive research on ways to breathe underwater, which is very important. They read through many books, but for some reason cannot find anything that will allow him to breathe underwater besides a drought charm that will dry up puddles and things, which of course is not nearly powerful enough to dry up the lake.
Imagine Hermione, who knows everything and books never failed her. Imagine how frustrated Hermione must feel during this part, like because she can't find an answer. For the first time, she's struggling to find something in a book.
I know, I feel so bad for her.
Yeah, that's irritating because she's always able to find stuff.
And not to mention, if he had just asked, Neville could have told him about the gillyweed because he had the book.
Yeah, but of course, nobody wants to associate with Neville.
Yeah.
Demi's gonna go on her soapbox, guys. It's gonna happen soon.
I know. I agree with her, though. So we come to Harry, Ron, and Hermione. They are in the library one evening. And the twins, Fred and George, come up to them and say, McGonagall would like to see you in her office. They're, of course, nervous and worried because they're like, why the heck would she want to see us in her office? So Hermione tells Harry, collect as many books as you can and meet us back in the common room and we'll continue researching. So Harry returns to the common room, but Ron and Hermione don't show up. He finally decides to go back to the library under his invisibility cloak and continue reading. He reads until the wee hours of the morning. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and he ends up falling asleep. He dreams about the portrait of the mermaid in the prefect's bathroom, and in this dream, he's poked awake, only to find out that Dobby is trying to wake him up. Harry tells Dobby that he has not figured out how to breathe underwater, and he's concerned about not being able to do the second task. Adorable Dobby says, of course, he knew that Harry had not figured it out, so he did it for him. He gives Harry a ball of gillyweed and tells him he must go save his Wheezy from the mer people. Of course, Harry does not know what a Wheezy is at first and is a little confused, but grows to discover that Ron has been taken by the mer people. Harry barely arrives in time for the second task, and they're preparing to all go, into the water. Harry is taking gillyweed. Fleur and Cedric both use the bobblehead charm, and Crumb does transfiguration and gives himself a shark's head. So they're all in the water now, and Harry's all alone. He's the first to reach the hostages, but along the way, he's swimming over a patch of weeds and runs into Grindylows, and they're trying to drown him. So he pulls out his wand and hexes them and gets away. Thank God. He ends up finding the mer people and the hostages and cuts Ron free, but he's worried about the other hostages. He sees that Hermione, Fleur's sister, and Cho are still there and doesn't want to leave them behind. So he waits until Cedric appears and takes Cho. Then Crumb comes by and takes Hermione. He waits, but Fleur never shows up. So, of course, he doesn't want to leave her sister behind and tries to untie her, but the mer people try to stop him. And they tell him he only can take his hostage. He ends up using his wand to threaten them, and so they back off because they can't do any magic, so they're scared. And he ends up cutting Fleur's sister free and drags them both up to the surface. We come to find out later that Fleur was unable to reach her goal because she was attacked by Grindylows. She's fighting tooth and nail to get to the water because she's worried that her little sister is hurt, and of course I would be too. I'd be freaking out. So everyone's awake, everyone's alive, everyone's doing great. Madame Pomfrey's giving everyone pepper up potion. Cedric ends up coming in first place because he was first to return outside of the time frame, 1 minute outside the time frame. And they award Harry second place because he was first to reach the hostages, but was determined to bring everyone back and ended up bringing more than just his own person back. So they give him second place after Cedric. And this brings us to the end of the second task.
As part of the Wizarding World, I've always wondered, what the other creatures were, and we learn about some of them in the books, but the mer people are kind of the most aloof of all of them, because they're underwater and you only see them in this book. So it's kind of interesting, learning about them. And then also, it's a little bit, I don't know which is scarier, knowing that you have to go underwater and rescue someone before they die, or being killed by a dragon. These tasks are pretty scary, and, you realize now why they only wanted 17-year-olds in this tournament.
So after the second task, the champions had a bit of a break until they found out what the third one is. So at the end of May, Professor McGonagall tells Harry at breakfast to go down to the Quidditch pitch later that night to meet Ludo Bagman and the other champions. So when Harry goes down, the Quidditch field is basically being transformed into a maze. There's hedges growing, and Ludo Bagman tells him that the third task is a maze, and they would have to face obstacles, some of Hagrid's magical creatures and spells to get to the Triwizard Cup. So basically all they're told is to practice and prepare as much as they can. They don't know any specifics of what they're going to be facing. Harry, Ron, and Hermione spend a lot of time practicing. Harry doesn't have to take end-of-term exams because he's a champion, but Hermione and Ron are being the best friends ever, and they're giving up study time to help him practice. So shout out to his besties for being the best of best. So they're practicing, and it's really funny because Professor McGonagall ends up telling them that they can use the Transfiguration classroom because she's tired of finding them in random rooms around the castle.
I love her. She's helping them instead of disciplining them at this point, which usually they're just in trouble with her, so that's hysterical.
So during these little practice sessions, Harry learns a couple spells that become very useful. The first one he learns is the stunning spell, which is stupefy, and we know that looking at the rest of the series, he really uses the spell a lot, so it's cool to see where he first learned it. He also learns Impedimenta, Reducto, the 4-point spell, which is super cool. It basically makes your wand a compass. and points north, so that's really cool. And then he also uses the shield charm, which is Potato. He learns that one too. So I think it's really cool that Harry is learning these very important spells that he uses in more important battles later on in the series for the Triwizard tournament. So yeah, it sucks that he was forced into the tournament, but at the same time, it really helped prepare him for what's to come. So I think that's a different way of looking at it. And so Harry feels super confident, and he kind of has the mindset that no matter what happens, the tournament will be over. Like, he feels super confident, but then at the same time, he's like, you know what? If I win, I win. If I don't, I don't. But this is the end. So on the morning of June 24th, Harry wakes up, and Professor McGonagall tells him that the champions' families are there to greet them because the families are allowed to watch the last task. Obviously, Harry's like, the Dursleys are not going to come see me in some wizard tournament. But we find out that Molly and Bill come, which I love because this just solidifies that the Weasleys truly view Harry as part of their family.
Oh yeah, he's always with them, and Molly is like the mother that he never had. I love her. This is why I love Molly so much.
So I think that's a very important part of the book. So they're all there, and it comes time for the task, and they all go down to the Quidditch field, and the hedges have grown to 20 feet, and there's an opening in them to enter the maze. And then Hagrid, McGonagall, Flitwick, and Moody show up with red stars on them. And basically, they're going to be patrolling the outside of the field in case something would happen to one of the champions. They're to send up red sparks and be rescued. So Harry and Cedric go in first because they are tied for first place. Then Crumb goes in next, and then Fleur comes in last. So the first thing Harry does when he enters a maze is use Lumos to ignite his wand tip. And it's very interesting at the beginning because Harry doesn't really face any obstacles for a while, and he knows that this is odd. And throughout the entire time he's in a maze, he constantly uses the 4-point spell to make sure that he's heading in the right direction to go to the center of the maze. And he also meets a lot of dead ends. But the first big obstacle that he faces is what he believes to be a Dementor. And so obviously he says, expecto patronum, and his dad comes out, but the Dementor stumbles, and Harry's like, oh, I've never seen one of those stumble before. And then he's like, oh, you're Boggart. Ridiculous. And then that goes away. Shout out to Professor Lupin for teaching him about Boggarts. So then Harry continues on a bit, and then he comes upon Golden Mist. He's like, OMG, what is this? So he tries Reducto, which I think is hilarious because Reducto is to blast solid objects out of the way, and he's using it on Mist, and then he even realizes, like, oh, that was stupid. Like, obviously that didn't do anything. So he's contemplating if he wants to walk through it or not when he hears a scream. And the scream sounds like Fleur. So obviously, being Harry Potter, he had to save everybody. So he runs through the Golden Mist, and everything flips upside down. Basically, the ground is the sky, and underneath him is the sky. And he's like, OMG, I don't know what to do. I didn't learn any spells to help me get out of situations where the world literally turns upside down. And I think that's really funny because the Golden Mist can kind of be seen as an analogy because after the maze, like, Voldemort comes back, and basically the Wizarding World, as everybody knew it, after the first Wizarding World, turns upside down. So this Golden Mist is kind of like foreshadowing to that. So Harry's like, okay, I have to get out of this situation. So he takes a chance, and he moves his one foot, and the world rights itself. So he's like off again, and then he meets a blast-ended screw. It's huge. It's like 10 feet long, and he describes it as like looking like a scorpion. So first Harry tries Stupefy, and it just bounces right off his armor and ricochets off back at Harry. And then he tried Impedimenta, which is supposed to slow it down and freeze it, but that bounces off his armor too. And at this point, the screw is like right on him, and he's like, OMG, I've never seen a screw this big, and I don't know what to do. So he tries Impedimenta again and ends up hitting the screw on its fleshy underside, basically its belly. So he freezes it, and then he runs off again. So as he's running, he hears Crumb, Crucio, Cedric, and he's like, what the heck is happening? So he gets all freaked out and he basically reductors a hole into the hedge, kicks his way through, and finds Crumb, Crucio, and Cedric. And so he stupefies Crumb, and Cedric gets up and is like, dude, like, what is happening? Like, he came out of nowhere and, like, basically hit me with an unforgivable curse. Like, what is happening? So they go back and forth a little bit and decide that it's a good idea to send up red sparks so he gets taken out of the maze. And also they think a little bit about how Fleur screamed before, and if Crumb had gotten hurt too. And obviously we know that Moody, aka Crouch, put him under the Imperious Curse, so that's why he did it. Because Crumb is a nice dude, like he's not going to cruise in on anybody. But at this point, Harry and Cedric are the only two left. And so they split paths, and then Harry comes upon a Sphinx. She basically tells him, you're close to your goal, and the quickest way to get there is past me. And she has a riddle. And Harry's like, oh my god, Hermione's good with the stuff, not me. So he tells the Sphinx, sure, I'll hear the riddle. And this is the riddle. First, think of the person who lives in disguise, who deals in secrets and tells naught but lies. Next, tell me what's always the last thing to mend, the middle of middle and end of the end. And finally, give me the sound often heard during the search for a hard-to-find word. Now string them together and answer me this. Which creature would you be unwilling to kiss? So, that's the riddle. And Harry does ask the Sphinx to repeat herself because this is Harry Potter and he needs to, like, process things at a slower pace. So she repeats it more slowly, and first he's like, I wouldn't want to kiss a blast-ended screw. But obviously that does not answer the riddle. So he's like, no. So he thinks about it, and obviously it's a spider. So the person who lives in disguise is a spy. The middle of middle and end of the end is D. So that's the D in spider. And then when you're searching for a word that you don't know, it's so spider. And like, it's so funny because he's like, spider. And then the Sphinx moves aside. And if Harry thought that answering the riddle would, give him a clear shot to the cup, he was wrong, because guess what he actually crosses paths with? An actual spider. So at this point, Cedric kind of meets him in the path. He comes out of another path that he's been running along, and their paths meet. And Cedric doesn't see the spider. So Harry's like, Cedric, look! And so he dives out of the way in time. And Harry starts shooting Stupefy and Impedimenta and everything at this spider, and nothing's doing anything. And then the spider picks him up, and Harry's like, the only way I can get out of this is if I, use the disarming charm. So he actually uses Expelliarmus on the spider, and he falls, which I think is so funny that he's like, you know what, I'm just gonna, make him drop me. So Harry does hurt himself. He lands on his leg or his ankle and gets hurt. But then Harry and Cedric use Stupefy together, which works. And this kind of reminds me of the part earlier when Jess was talking with the dragons. Like, one person using Stupefy didn't work, but like when you had a group of people using it, it worked. So I think that's cool, because it kind of reflects that.
Yeah, maybe it depends too on the size of the creature, right? So like if you're stupefying one wizard, right, that's just, the same size as you, or, similar creature. But like the bigger the creature, the more armor it has against magic, which is kind of cool. So like if we, I don't think you could stupefy Hagrid. Like, I don't think that's done.
No, he can't. They tried in the 5th book, but because he's half giant, it protects him. So yeah, that's a really good point, how like different creatures and stuff, like looking at just that spell alone, you can see like how they're different, and like how they're more powerful, or based on size or the type of creature they are. So that's really cool.
And also it's like symbolic too, because the spiders in the series basically are like protecting something the whole time. Like in Chamber of Secrets, they're protecting Aragog. Here he's like protecting the maze from them getting through. And also they're symbolically like creepy. They're also a symbolic obstacle.
Yeah, I really like that. So they are in sight of the cup, and they're both kind of standing there like, we both are here. Like, we made it. Like, this is the end. And it's so funny because Cedric is telling Harry, you take it, you saved my neck twice in here. But Harry gets super salty and he's like thinking in his head, he beat me to the cup just like he beat me asking Cho to the ball. And I'm just like, really, Harry? Like, that's what you're thinking of right now? You're thinking of how he beat you to asking Cho to the ball. So that's just funny. And then they go back and forth a little more. Cedric's like, you told me about the dragon. And then Harry's like, yeah, well, you told me about the egg. We're square. And then it's so funny because Harry's like, stop being noble. Like, he's telling Cedric to stop being noble. And then Cedric's like, well, I had help on the egg. And Harry's like, yeah, well, I had help on the dragon. So we're still square. So it's so funny. Like, they're just trying to convince each other why the other one should take it. Then Cedric keeps going and he's like, well, I mean, you should have gotten more points in the second task because you got to the hostages first and like wanted to free them all. And then Harry's like, well, I was the only one thick enough to believe the song. So it's so funny. But eventually, Harry's like, let's just take it together. We helped each other out. And so they grab the cup together and they're transported to the graveyard. The cup was a port key, basically to take Harry to Voldemort. And we all know what happens after this, you know. Voldemort yells, kill the spare, when he's in his creepy baby form, and Peter Pettigrew kills Cedric. Then there's a whole rebirth thing that happens, and then Voldemort comes back, the Death Eaters come back, there's a whole face-off, and their wands meet, and it's the whole Priory and Cantatum thing, and Harry's parents come out of Voldemort's wand, along with Cedric and a few others that he killed, and Cedric tells Harry to take his body back to his dad. So Harry gets away and takes his body back, and that's the end of the tournament. And obviously we know that Barty Crouch Jr. was behind this whole thing. He's been trying to help Harry as Moody this whole time because the goal was to get Harry to the cup because he needed to be taken to Voldemort. And that's why during the maze, like at the beginning, he wasn't meeting many things, probably because Moody was outside, like, you know, deflecting them or taking care of it. And Krum was under the Imperious Curse, and Cedric wasn't supposed to make it to the end. And I just feel like really bad because Cedric is despair. He wasn't supposed to be there, and because he was there, he died. So that's just a very harsh thing. And obviously we know that Harry is badly affected by this. Moving into the beginning of Order of Phoenix, he's having nightmares about it and everything. So this is, I feel like, obviously the end of Goblet of Fire is when the series really takes a turn. It's a very dark shift, and Harry's faced some tough things, you know, like he did the whole thing with the Sorcerer's Stone and down in the Chamber of Secrets, and then in Prisoner of Azkaban, the whole thing in the Shrieking Shack and freeing Buckbeak. Like, he's done things, but this end of the book is the first time where Harry really experiences the death of a friend basically because of him. And this really starts that for him, and like looking through the rest of the series, there's a lot of people that die for the Chosen One. And Harry's starting to feel that guilt with Cedric. And so I think that the Triwizard Tournament is very important, not only because it does prepare Harry for things to come, but it also is a turning point that sets the stage for the rest of the series and starts to develop Harry's character more.
It's almost like there's a lighter part of the series and there's a darker part of the series. Obviously, the first 3 books are considered lighter. Now, not lighter in a sense that, like, nothing happens, but lighter in a sense that, like, this isn't the danger yet. Like, this is just
nobody's getting murdered, except for, like, Quirrell, who has Voldemort in the back of his head. But nobody, you know, like, really care about. Like, we grew to really care about Cedric in this book. And this is the first time that a beloved character is dying for the sake of Harry. And I think that's like the big turning point.
It's a very interesting book, you're right, because the tournament is not a game. The tournament is, yes, it's a competition. Yes, you can win the Glory in a House Cup and 1,000 Galleons, but it's more of, you know, it's more of a preparation. It's more of a test, not a test of academia, but a test of bravery, like they said, of wits, you know, of your priorities. And this is just really forcing Harry to grow up. He's kind of seeing that there are other dangers. There's more things to worry about than school and grades and Quidditch.
I think Goblet of Fire is really important because it's the book where you first see Harry lose his innocence.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that a lot.
That's true. Yeah, there's so many books that have that theme, and this is no different. You're right.
And then also, like, his innocence, like, he trusted Moody, and then you find out that it was somebody who was loyal to Voldemort pretending to be Moody, taking Prodigy's potion. This is when Harry starts to realize that, you know, people aren't always as they seem, and he was betrayed by somebody he trusted. So yeah, the whole tournament just really changed Harry, and yeah, I think we had an awesome discussion about this. We got super deep into these tasks and how they shaped Harry and the rest of the story. And so we hope you enjoyed our discussion. Maddie, how did you like being on?
Thank you for having me on. It was an honor. It was a dream come true. I loved being on. Thank y'all so much.
We're so happy that you're with us, and this was so fun. I love talking about this. It's kind of like the Hunger Games, except only one person died. So I enjoy talking about this, and I think it was really fun to have a guest on who gave us some more perspective on the second task. And it was also hysterical reliving the Yule Ball, because that's one of my favorite parts of the book. So thank you so much for being on. If you or any of our other listeners have suggestions for topics, please let us know on social media. Let us know what your favorite part about the tournament was, like your favorite task, or maybe your favorite character, or even how you feel about Voldemort coming back and about Cedric's death, because I know that's a sore spot for a lot of people. So yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah, and our next episode is coming out June 5th. So stay tuned for that one. Thank you guys so much for listening again.
And it's a special surprise episode.
Oh, wait, you guys have no clue. I have so much stuff planned for this. All right, so yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
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 Thank you for coming back to Hogwarts with us in this episode of Lumos Maxima, the Rolling Library podcast.
Hedwig's theme and Leaving Hogwarts in this episode were originally composed by John Williams and arranged by your favorite Hufflepuff.
Until next time, 3, 2, 1,
Knox.